Let me move over to Rafe Heydel-Mankoo. Rafe, very good morning to you. All over the front pages today, Israel under attack, hellfire, the front page of The Sun. US threatens severe response as Iran attacks Israel. The Iron Dome holds firm. These are, you know, difficult times, aren't they?
Well, this is the most dangerous time since the start of the Gulf War in terms of Middle East tensions and the potential for there to be more significant developments. But, you know, the analysis you just had from the Colonel was excellent and just on the ball, making many of the points that I wanted to make. But we have to remember, of course, one of the reasons driving Iran here is that beforehand it would always tackle Israel through its proxies.
Yes.
It would use Hamas, it would use Hezbollah.
Right.
You know,
which Israel, both of which
it funds. And Israel's been so successful at knocking out the hierarchy of Hezbollah, and Hezbollah essentially has been crippled. And so, of course, Iran has now had to take on Israel you know, much more directly because he can't rely on Hezbollah anymore to do that. But the key point the Colonel said here is, did Iran actually issue an advance warning to the Americans of this advance taking place? It did that in April. Now, back in April, it took half an hour for cruise missiles to attack Israel. It takes only 12 minutes for ballistic missiles to come in from Iran to Israel. So why would Iran warned the Americans in advance? I think because they feared if more missiles did get through, the vengeance from Israel would be immense. And so there you can even see Iran being, you know, measured is a terrible word to use, but at least pulling its punches slightly, perhaps.
Yes, and I think also knowing, as they do, that, you know, David's sling, as it's called, which is the next level up from the Iron Dome, and there's, I think, a third level up further, was so successful in blocking what they sent in last time around that they could almost say, we kind of know that we can't hurt them, so we know that if we sent in rockets that were devastating and killed hundreds of people, that would be a different story. But this won't happen, and rather ironically, the one person who has been killed was a Palestinian walking down the street. An incredible piece of video which we're not going to show you just because it's a little bit too graphic, but walking down the street basically, and a missile just falls on his head.
That's right. I mean, it's incredible. It was an incredible moment. It was, you know, some sort of almost like a cartoon-like sort of scene to see there.
Yeah.
But as I said, you know, without that warning, you know, how much time did the British and the French and the Americans need to actually get into action?
Yeah.
And they, of course, the Iron Dome is excellent, but actually it's not foolproof. And it's the fact that Israel can rely on its allies in the West to also assist it that has been the secret to that success. And it's a question of how long the Brits and the Americans need to mobilise.
And I think one of the things that surprised me last night was that Keir Starmer sort of came out of hiding, because he hasn't been seen since last Wednesday, and we talked about this yesterday on the show, came out and gave a very quick statement about how we're backing Israel. Do we have that? I think we've got a clip. Let's have a quick look.
But I utterly condemn this attempt by the Iranian regime to harm innocent Israelis, to escalate this incredibly dangerous situation and push the region ever closer to the brink. It cannot be tolerated. We stand with Israel and we recognise her right to self-defence in the face of this aggression.
Now, that's all very well, and what you might expect a British Prime Minister to say. But let me ask you this question, Rafe. How does that play, given what previously the Foreign Secretary has said, that is David Lammy? Have a look.
I have informed my Right Honourable friend, the Business and Trade Secretary, and he is therefore today announcing the suspension of around 30 from a total of approximately 350 to Israel.
I mean, I'm sorry, I put this tweet out last night saying, so now Keir Starmer backs Israel after an attack by Iran, but how does that square with David Lammy's decision to stop selling arms to the victims in the Middle East, which is, in my view, Israel?
Yeah, exactly. Well, of course, David Lammy, not for the first time, left with egg on his face.
Well, it looks like sixth-form politics,
but it's well, that's precisely everything is performative when it comes to the Labour Party, particularly with David Mastermind Lammy.
Yeah.
But of course, what we're seeing now is a complete pivot, both in Britain and in America, where of course, you know, Israel's taken such a bashing politically over the last few weeks. Suddenly, they are gung-ho behind it. So you could say, I mean, Iran knew this was going to happen, but this is sort of the policy backfiring now, because now again, Israel has been assured of the support of its allies in the West, and of course that must be reassuring, of course, to people in Israel who perhaps thought that support was becoming much more fractured.
The other issue, of course, and James Max touched upon it just before he finished his show, is that October the 7th anniversary is coming up in less than a week. There will be proxies around the world who are, you know, aligned with Iran, aligned with Hezbollah, aligned with Palestine, who might seek to carry out some kind of terror attack in the West. So obviously we have to be on our guard as well.
We must all be on our guard. We have to remember, of course, that Mossad has warned about this being a very real possibility. Jewish charities are warning about this, particularly because October the 7th coincides with 4 of the most holy days in the Jewish calendar. So there are real threats both in Britain and in America, and indeed wherever the Jewish diaspora is based.
Right.
But of course, that means that all of us are potentially at risk as a result of that.
Right, exactly right.